Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of the Amateur in the Morning. I am your host, the Forex Amateur. Today is the 19th of October and it is Thursday, so the week is almost officially over. So, as I always say, as we get towards the end of the week, remember that you need to tread carefully as you get a bit later on into the week because the last thing you want to do is sacrifice any of the profits that you've made earlier in the week, right? So make sure any risks that you take are moderate risks, risks that you are willing to take in terms of setups that are much more higher quality rather than focusing on higher quantity, right? Before I get into it, let me throw in my little disclaimer. Remember, I'm not qualified to provide financial, investment, or trading advice. Everything I speak about on these episodes is purely my own opinion on these markets. Trades that I take are trades I'm taking with cash that I am willing to risk to ensure that any actions that you take on your part are based on analysis you've done, research you've done, and cash that you are willing to risk. Because the truth is, you could lose your entire investment. Yes, forex, or should I say, speculative investments are very high risk. So it's important for you to understand that you could lose your entire investment. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the charts because I wouldn't like to waste any time today. Let's talk about volatility 50, right? So looking at the daily chart on volatility 50, I have spoken about volatility 50 coming down into this level quite a few times over the past couple of days, right? So as you can see, that has actually played out really well over the course of yesterday and today. We can see volatility 50 sort of magnetizing towards this level that I have been speaking about for quite a while. Remember, we've been talking about this gray zone in here as a weekly resistance, or a weekly rejection zone, also coupled with this weekly trend line that I have identified as well. Not to say that it can't break below the trend line because it completely can break below the trend line. The trend line means nothing to the market, right? But it's just there sort of for guidance purposes, right? So what I've basically done is I did get in on this trade at this area up in here, right? As you would have seen if you do follow me on IG. I did get in on this trade right up there with a stop loss above there, and I had a take profit down here. But what I've actually done is when price came down into this gray zone a couple minutes ago, I actually closed off my position. So I'm currently not even holding a position on this market at the moment. The reason for that is because there's no guarantee that price will reach my level. And even though my confidence is up there in terms of price getting into my level, I would rather not risk the profits that I am holding currently on this market, or I was currently holding on this market. So I'm currently looking at now obviously we have to look at the lower time frames to see how price is going to be reacting off that level. So looking at the 4 hour, you can see we're still extremely bearish, right? So I have a very high expectation that price will get down into my yellow zone in there, right? But it's just a matter of I didn't feel like holding that position anymore. I was more than happy with the profits that I did get on this position since I was holding it all the way from the upside over here. So I'll be looking at this market for the remainder of the week to see if I can find buying opportunities to take this market back to the upside. But overall, currently, for the remainder of today, we should see this market keep pushing to the downside, at least until it gets down into that yellow zone that I've marked off there. Looking at volatility 10, right, I did speak about it getting down into around these areas in here, right, before we look for buys to take it back to the upside. I don't know why I'm using this. I should rather use this. Okay, that's better. Right? So I did speak about it getting down into around these areas here, right? Before we look for buys to continue taking it to the upside. However, what I am currently thinking at the moment is I am thinking that there is a much higher likelihood that we will see price sort of pull up into this area before it gets pushed down to around that area and then continue back to the upside, maybe a retest there, pull back. What it does in the interim in between those areas doesn't really matter, right? But I'm thinking that we might see it coming up into there before it pushes down to the downside, right? That is a very big probability. However, looking at the 4 hour chart, I have identified, why is my charts doing this morning? Let me just remove this for a second, right? Looking at the 4 hour chart, I can see that we've got this break of market structure over here. right? So we've got price sort of, sorry, I was just getting the chart a bit straighter, right? So we've got price pushing up into this area, pulling back, pushing up, falls, break out above these highs, pull back in and retest into that resistance that it formed right up there. And we can see that it pushed down and it broke this market structure over here. So it is giving good bearish signals at the moment in the fact that it broke this resistance, came back, retested it, and then with this push to the downside over here, broke this market structure over there to the downside. So that's telling me that we do have a bearish sentiment to this market. So I'll be looking to see if the market comes back to around these areas, if it does respect those areas, and we can get a further push back to the downside from around there. However, if we do see this market break above these areas, then there's a much higher likelihood that we will see it continue back to the upside. Moving on, let's talk about 25-1S. Controls are annoying me right now. Okay, let's put them there. Right, let's talk about 25-1S. So I did speak about 25-1S yesterday, and I did say that this area that it is currently sitting in is a key area in the market, right? It doesn't make any sense to me to make any decisions on what's happening or what's about to happen in this market until we see a clean break of this area with a retest for it to go down, or a clean break of this area with a retest to go up, right? That is what I am currently looking at. To be very honest with you guys, I'm not even going to tell you what I'm thinking is going to happen in this area, because my thoughts really don't matter as long as it is sitting in this blue zone. And as you can see, if you thought that you're going to take sells yesterday, unfortunately you would have been burnt out with this huge push to the upside. If you thought that you're going to be taking sells the previous day as well, you might have gotten a small pull down, but yesterday's candle would have taken you out as well, right? So that is one of the reasons why I decided not to take any trades in this area, because I am still, like I have said, I am still thinking price could come up into this yellow zone before we see it smash to the downside, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to make decisions in this area right now, because for me, this is an indecisive area until we see what price wants to do, right? So that's my thoughts on 25-1S. I'm not really going to break down a bit lower than that, right? I'm going to stick to the daily time frame on this one because I want to see what's going to happen in here. However, if it does break down to the downside, right? If it does break down to the downside, then you can look for selling opportunities, or I would be looking for selling opportunities back to the downside to buy perhaps up into that area again, right? Cool. So let's move on to volatility 75. Look at volatility 75. Currently, I believe volatility 75 has been sold to the dogs, basically. Not to sound rash or sound harsh in any sort of way, but looking at volatility 75, as you guys might be able to see as well, this is currently one of the most ranging markets, even worse currently than 25 at the moment, in that it hasn't broken out of this range in, I think, since around mid-October, that it has been in this range right here. So it really doesn't make any sense for me to come up with any sort of thoughts or anything on this market right now, because it is in a key level. As I have said, you'll notice that markets start to consolidate like this. A lot of people don't understand what a consolidation would mean or stuff like that, and whenever something happens with price, I always try to make an effort to try and understand what is happening, why is this happening, so that when I see it happening again, I am able to understand it with a much deeper depth, and I'm able to navigate through it much more fluidly, right? If that is a word, I'm not even sure if fluidly is a word, right? Looking at the weekly time frame, so we see the weekly time frame, and that is the reason why price is currently playing around quite a bit, because we've reached this key level in the market right here, which I have been pointing out quite a few times. So I did draw it out from around in this area here. And you can see that this is a key area right here in the market. We can see a lot of activity when price came to this area at this point. We can see a lot of activity when price came here. And we can see a lot of activity right now where price is at the moment. So it's really playing strongly off of this level. Right now, looking at this market, I would actually think that it's going to push to the upside, right? Seeing as how it's rejecting off of this level that I've got in here, right? And the fact that we're also getting a bit later into the week, right? So we're on Thursday right now. But what could happen is we could see this candle close down or close on this zone right here, and then the next candle bounce and go to the upside. So that is a very big probability. Looking at the daily time frame, however, I am still bearish bias on the daily, but I am bullish bias on the weekly right now. So that's one of the reasons why I did take some buys yesterday off of this level in here, and I did close off as price rejected off of the top in there because it was a scalp for me. If it did progress into a longer holding trade, then I would have perhaps moved my stops into break even and let it play out. But unfortunately, I did notice that the market was failing to break above this area right here. You can see it on the 4-hour chart, right? So the market has literally been failing to break above this area for quite a while, right? So when I did see that the price was rejecting off of this level right in here, I did actually close off my position. All right. So looking here, you can see that price is really reacting off of this level quite a few times, right? And that is telling me that there's a much higher willingness for it to go higher and moving along with the weekly chart, what the weekly chart is telling me, because I always say in a time of indecisiveness, the best thing to do is to go with the highest time frame chart that you are looking at. So for me, I'm looking at the weekly time frame, which is telling me bullish right now. So I will stick to my bullish bias, even though I can see bearish signs on the daily, right? So perhaps if price breaks down below here, gives us a nice retest off there, then it might be a good opportunity to look for a sell down into this level before we start looking for buys all the way back into this high right in there. All right, cool. So moving on from that, we've basically covered all of the synthetic charts that I would like to look at today. We can just look at these dollar index futures, and we can look at NASDAQ real quick, and then we will be done for the day, right? Looking at the dollar index, like yesterday, I did speak about the dollar index selling off, right? And as you can see in yesterday's candle, that did actually happen, right? So we did see the dollar index right here in yesterday's candle. You can see that it pushed down, and I did say that it will gravitate towards these lows. So if I actually mark this up real nice from here to here, you can see that we did get a retest off of this low. My line could be slightly crooked, possibly. Did we get a retest? Okay, so we got really close to this level. It didn't really touch it, right? But that simply tells me what's going to happen is we're going to get it retest up into around these areas in here, perhaps even spike slightly through it, and then we're going to see it slam back down again, right? So looking at the dollar index for the remainder of today, I would expect it to go bullish into around these areas in here, and then see it coming back down to the downside perhaps for next week, right? So looking at dollar index for the remainder of the day, I would be looking for bullish signals on dollar pairs, obviously, or dollar base pairs, right? So just be very sure that you understand how to use the dollar index as well. If you don't, make sure you do your research as well so that this information that's being disclosed on here, you can use it in the right way, right? Now, remember, I keep saying that if equities are going up, futures are going down. If futures are going up, equities are going down, right? Now you can see on yesterday's candle, we had a bearish candle that rejected off the top, off the bottom, sorry. Looking at NASDAQ right here, we had some bullish activity in NASDAQ yesterday right there, and then it pushed down to the downside. Now, looking at these charts, you might say, hey, the candlesticks are both bearish candlesticks. However, remember, it's not a full-on balance between these two, but it's a simple correlation between equities and futures. Not to say that every time equities moves up, there's an equivalent move in futures, right? But it just means the general sort of consensus is that that's the sort of correlation between the two. Now, looking at NASDAQ for today, I actually wanted to start looking at these charts on trading view, to be honest, because I really cannot focus on what's happening right now on this chart, looking at it on MT4, because MT4 looks like crap. I don't even know how people trade on MT4 on the laptops. Okay, looking at this right now, I would be prone to look for some selling opportunities on NASDAQ, to be honest, right? That would simply be what I would be looking at, right? But we do have this, let me just sort of pan in here a bit so you guys can see this clearly. All right, so I would be looking at this level right here. So we can see a bit of supply or demand, sorry, a bit of demand. So this is a bit of a demand zone right here. We can see price breaking above this area, right? And then coming back, retesting it, and still maintaining its integrity above this level right there. So that tells me that we would most likely see perhaps a bullish push coming off here. Remember, I have been long-term buy bias on Nasdaq. I'm so used to speaking about synthetics. I have been a long-term buy bias on Nasdaq. So I would actually be looking at maybe short-term sells, right? But all dependent on price breaking below these levels. So should we see price break below these levels, then I would be sort of okay with the fact of looking off selling opportunities. But right now, looking at how price is reacting off of this level, I would actually think that we would see it continuing back to the upside. Now, that is a probability, right? You might be saying, hey, Ryan, there's a double top right there, so that means it's going to sell off, which is possible, right? So I don't disagree with that frame of thinking, right? Because we've also had a double top right here. So I would actually argue, why did it not sell off from that double top, and why would it sell off from this double top, right? So that doesn't also make sense as well. So just look at this area is what I would be doing, looking at this area here to look for buying opportunities or look for a breakout for me to look for selling opportunities off of that level. From tomorrow going forward, I'm actually going to start looking at these Nasdaq and the dollar index on trading view, because I honestly cannot focus on this MT4 chart right here, right? So I will be looking at my trading view analysis that I have on those charts. Okay, cool. So that's it from my side. Not really much more that I do need to speak about. So until next time, it has been a pleasure as always to share, and I am wishing you a blessed and a profitable trading day. I'll catch up with you guys again, same time, same place tomorrow. Take care.